Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're listening to 27 Degrees SAG, which is the exact location of the galactic center in your astrological birth chart. And we have such wonderful vibes going on right now. We've got Pluto that's making an aspect to the galactic center, and that is just reassuring that all of us are going to be meeting a huge change in our life, and I mean head on. And this is going to change how we receive the information through the galactic center, because that's where the light is going to be coming in. Light equals information. And tonight we have a wonderful guest on the show. She's returning, and I'm so happy to have her back. Her name is Sandra Cooze. She's a Reiki master. She's an intuitive mentor and a coach. She does such beautiful healing work through removing blockages, any types of false beliefs, really helping your soul's growth through contacting your Akashic records. So, welcome to the show, Sandra. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me again, Kimla. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you were so interesting that I had so many people, sidebar me. I need to have her information. So I want to make sure that we're very clear as to how everybody can get a hold of you throughout the show. Not only that, but I know you're an author, and I was so interested in your book, your first of a trilogy, and it's Journey to Yourself: How to Heal from Trauma. Let's start there. Let's start there, and let's all hear about how you got into writing your first of three.
Well, my trilogy, Journey to Yourself, How to Heal from Trauma, written by someone who did, says it all in the title. I'm a trauma survivor, and I found my own way of healing. And I've learned so much on my journey, not just from the trauma healing aspect and what trauma really is and what we need to do to release it fully, 100%, like it never happened, but also how it connects with the spiritual journey, how spiritual practices can help us release trauma. So for me, my journey turned into a passion. I simply feel so drawn to helping others heal because I know it's possible because I healed. And if I can do it, so can anybody else. And that's how Journey to Yourself was born. It was supposed to be one book. But the more I wrote, the more I tapped into the knowledge I gained through my healing journey. And the more trauma I came through, the more it looked like a big encyclopedia if I would continue like the whole journey to yourself. And so it turned into three books. The first book, which is out, is How to Heal from Trauma. The second one, which will hopefully be out end of this year, latest beginning of next year, if I can kick myself in the butt and write it, or finish it rather. That's called How to Unbecome Who You Were Taught to Be, where I unravel everything we were taught throughout our lives from childhood, the limiting beliefs our parents, grandparents, generations put on us and raised us with, so that we can become who we were always meant to be, without trauma, without restriction, without limitations. So that's basically the trilogy, to release everything we're not so we can become everything we're supposed to be.
So let me ask you, because right now I'm thinking, do I qualify? How badly have I been traumatized? What exactly do you consider trauma?
Anything that dims your light,
Mm,
Anything that stops you from being who you truly are
wow.
comes from trauma. We think trauma is the big stuff. Yes, it is. But there's also little things, things we believe about ourselves, things where we limit ourselves. We are divine beings. We are limitless. The only thing that limits us is our limiting beliefs about ourselves. So
Mhm.
basically, anything that limits you from pushing through, from telling your ego to take a hike or comply, purr like a kitten, anything that stops you from being exactly who you want to be, who you were meant to be, can be considered trauma.
Wow.
So when I work with my clients, I start where they are at the moment. I jump in right there and take them to the next level. So if they're still working through deep trauma, we start there. If they have worked through the deepest trauma, we continue with the limiting beliefs and the mindset change to really bring in the love, the happiness, the courage, the divinity that we're all supposed to have.
I just want to support that because she has helped me a great deal personally. I have worked with Sandra, and I just want to tell you, she listens, she can feel it, she can spot it, and it may, just like anything that takes root within your electromagnetic field, it may go down like many, many levels. And it may not just stop at this lifetime, it may go through many incarnations. And she showed me how it can go back through generational beliefs. And that's what I find so fascinating because she uses her knowledge to dissolve and unravel many, many years and um, family ties and the ties that bind. She locates them. And I mean, in a hurry, right?
Yeah, I'm a no nonsense kind of person.
She doesn't waste time. She gets right in there. And and sometimes what I experienced is that it leads to a whole nother plethora of barricades or blockages or amazing awareness that I really didn't have. And that's why I just love that you came back on the show. I just love to support you and all of your work because it's just really is astounding. And so let's talk a little bit about how do we go back through that subconscious generational chain or bring it up for awareness.
Well, before I go into that, let me explain what generational and what ancestral issues are.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a little difference. Generational issues, generational trauma is from the generations we still know. So let's say our parents, grandparents, who our grandparents still remember, maybe their grandparents. Let's say 5 generations. That's generational trauma. And generational trauma comes through in limiting beliefs. So basically, when our ancestors, let's say parents, grandparents, great grandparents, were being raised through trauma, lived through trauma, and the limiting beliefs resulting from that trauma, they teach us. In an event, they want to protect us and to make sure that we're careful, but stay in your lane, keep your head down. Work is hard, and all of those beliefs that they put onto us. Also, money trauma. Money trauma is classic in generations and ancestors. We don't even know why we resent money. We don't even understand why it is so hard to make a living. But in the end, it's the trauma that's carried out in our DNA, in our energy body. It's just sitting there. Now, ancestral trauma is anything beyond 5 generations.
Oh,
This
okay.
can go like 50 generations, 100 generations, depending. It's amazing how far back I sometimes went to release one trauma that happened at one time and really went through the whole ancestral line to my client. It's fascinating how sometimes ancestral trauma can have can cause physical issues. It's
Wow.
not always emotional or mental or traumatic issues. It's really physical. For example, a friend of mine was telling me she had back pain in the middle of her back, where it's strange to have back pain in the first place in the center. And she said she's had it for as long as she can remember. Her mother had it too, and her grandmother. Now that's a pattern because it happened throughout the generations. So we looked into it, and it was an ancestral issue. It was ancestral trauma from, I believe, 15 generations ago, where a woman had an abusive husband, and the husband pushed her to the floor and put his boot on her back to keep her down. And that caused physical and mental emotional trauma. And that was never released, and it was carried down up to my friend and her ancestors. We released that through the Akashic records. We released the energy of that trauma. A couple of days later, she tells me the back pain is gone. So it's truly fascinating how ancestral trauma that's not being released can really affect us. But the interesting thing is, it's not just the trauma that we look into, also look into the strength, the gifts that our ancestors left for us so that we can turn them on, put them back into our knowledge so they can help us activate them. That was the word I was looking for.
Mhm. Yeah. So you can kind of balance all of that out, right?
Mm.
And kind of replace, nothing's a vacuum. So I'd rather have it replaced with something positive, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because in my generational family, we have carried down the kidney disease. And, some people have heart disease in their family or circulatory disease or you name it, psychological issues, big.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. And for you to be able to go back and locate that, that just, and to release that. So my question is, if you, if you go back and you release this back pain and where it happened, does it automatically release everybody in that chain?
Yes.
Wow.
It goes through the whole ancestral line.
Wow. That's like a miracle.
Well,
Pretty much.
maybe.
Yeah, pretty much it is. Yeah. Oh, wow. Um, I it's such great work. I really want you to be out in the front and to make sure that you are sharing your gift and your knowledge so that you have little disciples that can go out to places that you don't get and to really make sure all of this happens because I just feel like the collective is ready for this, right? They
Mhm.
are ready to release big, big time. And I feel like, astrologically, especially with the solstice coming up, we have, and I mentioned it before, we have a huge amount of light. We have been trying to dance as fast as we can for the last 10 years because we've got so many upgrades coming at us, coming at us, coming at us.
Mhm.
You ain't seen nothing yet. It's almost like the floodgates going to open. And if you have let me say, if you have your electromagnetic field um, shot with bullets or big, huge clogs in it, it's going to be so obvious. It is going to really show up, not just for people like you, but it's going to show up for everybody. And I feel like this particular blast that we're going to be getting is going to take us 24 years to assimilate. 24 years to assimilate this kind of light that is being adjusted and being introduced to planet Earth. So, in saying that, and on your particular journey, um, there must be a deeper reason why you're healing all this trauma. Can you give us a little clue?
Yes, we just talked about this, and I've been wondering, why trauma healing? Why me? Why am I so drawn to helping women heal? And I've been through, I think, the biggest growth spurt I've ever been in the last few days, and it was painful. I've released so much that it's unbelievable. I was constantly in tears. My husband didn't know if I was coming or going, but now finally I understand why. Because what I've been doing for myself and for other women is really healing the divine feminine. Because I've become very passionate about the primal instinct, especially because I help also couples with intimacy issues after trauma, how they can help themselves and without having to see a counselor and everything. For me, it was the divine feminine and divine masculine that really has been slaughtered for centuries. Women are so powerful, and that's why we're constantly being persecuted. We're constantly being abused to keep us down, so stop us from really getting back to our divine feminine and healing the trauma, not just from ourselves, from our past lives, from our ancestors, is freeing our divine feminine, getting back to who we as a collective divine beings really are. And so that's why.
Amazing. And I can't even imagine the big release that you have for that, and the sadness, because we feel so much, and for you to feel that on so many levels, that has got to be you know that's got to be just overwhelming at best. It's one of these things where everything must be balanced in order to really go forward, or we're going to go forward in shreds, in particles. And so bringing both of the tai chi together, the yin and the yang together, so that we can move forward with our energy, is a wonderful intention and a plan. I feel as though it's a divine plan, and it's very interesting to me, because being knowing Chinese astrology, being a feng shui consultant, and knowing that elemental energy working with the cosmos energy, um, the no, the prediction of the Chinese masters was that the energy for the next 20 years is coming from the West, and it's coming from middle-aged women. They're going to find their power, and you are going to be part of that, but they're going to find their power, and they are the ones that are going to do the reweaving of the ley lines of planet Earth energetically. Cool, right?
I love that. And it makes total sense because most of my clients are middle aged women. So it makes complete sense.
and they're being directed to you because on some level they they want to be a part of this, or they're being tapped
Mhm.
subconsciously. That's why they're on the planet at this particular time. And there's also women who have paved the way. In Dolores Cannon's
Yes.
theory of the three waves, right? Um, but paving the way, opening the door, making it possible to even talk about this kind of thing, is the super door opener to all of this. But this portal that's going to be opening for June 21st, when the sun enters Cancer for the summer solstice, we have got Mercury is going to be sextiling Mars, which means our brains are going to be, I want to do it. I want to do it now. I can see how I can get this done. And you won't want anybody standing in your way.
Right.
And yeah. And so, have you found one particular thread through this as far as results in the healing?
Yes, I definitely have. It's for me, what I found is that it was the value piece for me that was missing. And it was interesting because I just started a chapter in my new book about value, valuing yourself, investing in yourself and your healing journey. And I got so triggered by the term value that I realized there was something within me that was still not healed. And it's very interesting as a healer, I should value my knowledge, and yet I didn't. I didn't value it enough. I didn't give it the value it deserved. I was doubting it. I was doubting part of my journey. I was doubting if I'm doing the right thing. And that was huge to really work through that. And the healing from that is phenomenal.
Mm.
And that's one thread that I found. And it's important. That's what opened the door for me to see that we all need to work on value, because we are basically pushed in a society where where we're taught to value not ourselves, but the things around us. Big houses, big cars, Gucci purses, things like that. That's what we have to put our value on. And we forget that we are the ones who carry the value, not the items around us.
Very, very, very well said. And I have to say this being an astrologer, but Jupiter and the North Node is the direction of where we're going at this particular time. It's our North Compass, where we're all going as a collective. It's in Taurus, which rules financial, money, value. And for you to pick up on that is so validating for what I do.
It's very fascinating.
We're kind of, giving and taking here, shaking things up. I love it. But that's exactly, what Taurus is all about. It's very stubborn, to dig its heels in a lot of times, because perhaps those around them are not giving them their value. So that's a major thing. We have done such amazing work as a collective in the female
Mhm.
to be able to be valued for our motherhood and our abilities of that, and also to be able to handle financial um, the financial experience, and also the value of life itself,
Mhm. Yeah.
because Taurus is an earth sign. There's nothing more earthy than Taurus. And Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is the feminine. So for us to kind of come full circle about, what's one very easy thing that we can do to perhaps start us on the road to really, upping our value or appreciating our value. When we do, other people do, right? It's kind of one of those things. But what is one easy way that we can begin to do that?
Well, it depends where we are in our healing journey.
Mm,
It can be very challenging to start valuing ourselves. We could start by time. Most women do not do proper self care because we're taught to take care of everybody else. And then when everything is done at the end of the day, we get to relax. But
mhm.
let's face it, work is never done. We always find something new to do. If it's not this, it's that.
Right.
So we always say this is more important than our self care. Valuing us enough to take time out of the day and say, okay, this time is for me. This hour in the day is for me. I'm going to sit down unapologetically without guilt and I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to take a bubble bath, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm just going to binge watch something. Anything that makes us happy, that we, at first, it's going to feel like a chore. We have to take time out of the day for us. But soon this will turn into a habit. And once it's a habit, it's part of our day where we honor ourselves, where we honor the work that we do, where we honor our divine feminine and do what we love, what brings us joy, just because. I think that's a good start to practice value.
Okay. And your business is called Rise Above Your Story, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you can reach her on any of the social media, Facebook, Instagram. Are you on LinkedIn too?
I do have an account, but I really, no. If you send me a message there, I probably won't get it. So,
Yeah.
fair warning.
Okay. Okay. So it's Rise Above Your Story. A lot of us do get caught up in our story, don't we? You know, this is why I can't do that. This is
Mhm.
why, Kelly Clarkson always, she always really gets to the heart, to the meat of things. And, this is why I, I don't, what did she say? This is why I stay on this side of the street, or this is why I don't stray, or, this is why, because of you. And it's one of those things that, we have to take responsibility for ourselves, um, and give ourselves self-care, but we have to take responsibility to learn, if we do not know, to learn how to be happy and how to experience joy in the moments of life. And I feel like in the past generations that I have known, and I'm, please chime in the chat room, everybody, with your own stories. But um, life was to be hard. Life was to work so hard to get so little, and you should just be happy with the crumbs, and that's it.
Mhm.
And to kind of turn that belief system around, really takes an awareness that we all have it. We all have it. It's like we all have, two eyes and a nose. Some things we just all have. And to know that we are not valuing joy, life, our experience. Do we have to go through some type of chaos, some type of pain, some type of trauma in order to grow? Do we have to do that? What's your opinion?
Well, okay, this is an interesting question because technically, no. What I've learned on my journey and working with my clients, there comes this tower moment where a past person asks, who am I? What legacy am I leaving for the world? What am I bringing to the world that is of benefit? It's also called a midlife crisis, usually. That's the turning point where we start to wonder, what did we do with our life until then?
Mm-hmm.
That's the point when we start to question, and that's the point when we start to look for our purpose, any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are someone who went through deep trauma, for example, like me, who found their purpose before the midlife crisis, to be there for the women in midlife crisis, to help them find their path and find their purpose. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to go through trauma, but it is helpful. It is still a very unpopular opinion, but I see trauma as a rite of passage because you can only be traumatized as long as you have no idea who you are. Because
Mm-hmm.
once you know who you are, you stand in your power,
Mm-hmm.
no one can traumatize you because you have such strong boundaries in place. You have such natural confidence from
Mm-hmm.
knowing who you are that no one would even try and get close to you and do anything malicious because your energy is too powerful and too strong.
Very cool. So I do believe that a lot of the experiences that you have um, help you, like what you were saying, help you create or help your activate your mission in life and why you're here. And I feel as though with this, all of this new kind of light and this new energy coming in, I feel as though things are going to start happening even faster than we can ever dream of. Do you think things are happening fast now? No, just wait. And I feel like healing is going to come in an instant, and other things are going to happen, and the sky's the limit. Um, and it's not just, you know, it's not just our planet. It is a total, uh, galactic um, consciousness. And we are going to start expanding that and start learning how to deal with that as a collective. Um, so I think that what we're doing now, and we are highlighting the healing through this, through these steps and through this way. I feel like in the future, it's going to be accelerated and expanded and instantaneous, and so I'm really excited. Um, I remember when I was 10, sitting down and learning how to chart an astrology chart. Now, I know most 10-year-olds don't do that, and I had a huge book. It was an ephemeris of every date where every planet was, and every minute. You have to go to the minutes as well. And then you plot where the planets were when you were born. And I did everything by hand. And now you do it instantaneously on a machine. So to hear, to hear the gears, to hear, the healing, to really appreciate what's coming to us in the future, we need to see how it started and what the real process is, right?
Right.
And I really want you to finish your next book.
I'm working on it. But I can tell you what I see through my healing practice is that we are getting rid of the trauma. For millennia, we have been raised with trauma, and now we're healing all of that. So the next generation from people who have healed their trauma will be empowered from the get go. So this is already helping future generations to grow up empowered rather than traumatized. So we're basically already shifting the mindset of the collective simply by healing our trauma and by empowering our children so they will in turn empower their children. So we're basically switching the mindset of the collective from trauma to empowerment simply by healing.
That's so right. And it goes so deep. You can even see Mother Earth, you know, crying out to be healed. And, any kind of healing work, I know in my circle, so many that are doing the work right now and doing healing, on so many different levels and shifting. Um, so, talking about the power empowerment for the divine feminine, a lot of people don't know exactly what the divine feminine is. And have we ever been in touch with it before? Do we have anything to kind of reflect on, or are we creating it new?
Well, I'm sure at the beginning of time, we have been completely connected with the divine feminine, just like men have been connected with the divine masculine. Because you have to see, we were put on this earth to be two parts of a whole. We're all meant to complement each other. But think about what happened throughout the years: wars and abuse, and women were burned as witches, and women were put in this, you take care of the house and you cook and clean, and that's your life. We were basically persecuted for knowing how to heal, for being nurturers, for our primal instinct of nurturing. So we have constantly been held a thumb down so we could not explore who we truly are. Now, I'm now working with the Akashic records, figuring out why, because to me, it feels like men were just afraid of us, of our energy. So it must be so strong that it is terrifying to men. Even though if men were standing in their divine masculine, it would be the perfect combination because we would complement each other. We would both nurture and protect each other. It would be the divine union of two
Right,
powers that are meant to be together in a positive way.
right, right.
But powers in a positive way cannot be controlled. You can only control through fear. And
Mm,
that's what has been going on for the last millennia. So now
right,
we're stepping out of that. And so now the term divine masculine, divine feminine become more mainstream because more and more people wake up to the concept. I don't think we have quite understood yet what exactly that means, a union between the divine feminine and divine masculine. But I think we all feel the pull towards that. I
right.
know I do.
So you mentioned Akashic Records, and this is something that, a lot of people don't even know what are you talking about? You know, is that something like, the top 10 hits, people think it's like like a record you play or something. Explain what the Akashic Records are and how you tapped into it.
Well, the Akashic records are not a place like we would think a place. They are a library on the fifth dimension. So they're all energy. Basically, all the knowledge that you could ever want from any lifetime on earth, from any soul, past and future, is all in the Akashic records, which means we each have our own soul room where we have pamphlets, scrolls, books about all the lives we ever lived and all the lives we ever will live, about traumas, curses, spells, everything is in there. Now, you know how it is with Reiki. When you're ready, Reiki finds you. Reiki is your birthright. Reiki is something we all do every day without realizing it until we're attuned to it, and then we really start to use it. The Akashic records are your birthright to access too, but you will be invited when you're ready. I remember when I did my Reiki training. That's when I've heard about the Akashic records for the first time. Then I got a book about how to access the Akashic records, and I did a guided meditation to go in my dreams. Well, I did it twice, and both times I was greeted at the gates from hellhounds because I wasn't ready for the Akashic records. I wasn't allowed in yet because I wasn't at the right level. Because going onto the Akashic records and working on your own soul or the soul of someone else is so much responsibility. You
Sacred
have to
work.
make,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They have to make sure you're ready for it so that you do not mess anything up and destroy a whole soul,
Right.
or put more evil in than out. Because in Akashic records you find all the curses from all lifetimes. You have generational rooms where you go in and you see the books from your generation so you can release those. Which
Wow.
means in 2015, it's when I was invited to the Akashic records.
Wow.
I watched a webinar for something called a soul realignment. It's an amazing modality in Akashic records where you actually go in and heal. You heal on soul level. And that really fascinated me. I had goosebumps all over because before then, I've only heard about reading the Akashic records. You can go in and you read for your client. But I was thought, that's never enough. There has to be a way to heal. And then came the soul realignment, and I did that. I'm still doing that today. It's an amazing reading. It gives you so much information about your soul, where it comes from, what divine gifts you have, the life lesson you have this lifetime, how many spirit guides, and also what is attached to you that the soul is ready to release, all kinds of that. And
Wow.
I enjoyed it very much. And that was the base for what I designed with the ancestral healing. Because then I trailed off and I was like, okay, if I can do that, like a whole cleansing of the soul, why not go in and heal trauma,
Hmm.
specifically from ancestors? And so I designed the divine ancestral healing, where I go specifically to look for patterns and issues that come up, talk about it with my client, and then see what comes up, what we can release. And it's truly amazing. I love working with the Akashic Records. And the really amazing thing is that they have the Divine Council of Light. They're also in the Akashic Records. And when you're ready and you're invited to that, that's a whole new experience
Wow.
because then you really get the deep answers from the collective and
Wow.
guidance on how to help heal. And I'm
Right.
always in when I'm in that room because it's so highly spiritual.
Oh my gosh. Well, in order to reach that frequency, in order to match whatever frequency you need to do, did you use the tools of meditation in order to get there?
No, you
Mm.
don't need any meditation to get to the Akashic records once you have been invited. It's just like I can sit here and I can be in my records and do work while I'm talking to you. It's just like parallel. Like I could step in and step out. It's not hard at all. And it doesn't take any energy. It shouldn't.
Right.
But the thing is, you have to be ready for it. You have to have that level of spiritual understanding, let's put it this way, to
Right. And I feel like also an understanding of universal law as
yeah.
well. Yeah. I A lot of people through religion or belief system, know the commandments, but they really have never been taught universal law. And I think that's something that we should all really know if we're going to be working on that kind of level. But what I see going forward here, I see the creating of new types of families, new types of families and on a whole different frequency. And I just feel as though in order to hold this new light that's coming in, um, you yourself have to be lighter. You have to match that in order to hold it, in order to work with it, in order to survive when all this, light comes in. And that's why everybody is eating lighter, wearing lighter fabric. Even in the cold, they have invented fabric that will keep the body heat in, yet it's not so thick and heavy like wool and all of that. You don't need to eat 3 huge meals a day, like we used to, in order to keep it all going. Things are happening at a faster rate, but I can see the benefits of new um, golden links, in family, the legacy, like you were talking about, this new golden legacy that is not tarnished, it's not broken, it's not chipped or chinked, or missing pieces, that we're really going to solidify the reason we have families and the choices that we make as souls coming in to experience that family and matching that frequency instead of battling, locking horns, and going for it in order to learn the lessons or to prove somebody wrong or those kinds of things. It's going to be more of a joyous, productive, creative, harmonic time, so the benefits I can see in such a wonderful long-term aspect of planet Earth. That's just phenomenal. So do you ever get together with your healing circle, or do you have those? Do you have them online or anything like that we can partake in?
Sometimes, yes. I'm starting to build an ancestral healing circle.
Wow.
What I would like to do is get together every 3 months with like 10, 15 women and help them release ancestral issues that have been coming up, or past life issues, karmic issues. To really I guess 3 months, just coming together and healing, helping them along and see how life has been and just sharing beautiful healing light and
Right.
encourage everybody on their journey.
Yeah. There's so many different ways that you can discover your own way to heal. But I liked the fact that you acknowledged it was our birthright, to be able to activate our hands, our heart, to be able to heal. Um, I've I've read and researched so many masters, and including Jesus or Yahshua, whatever language you want to call, and um, so long ago, even the Buddhas so long ago were using this particular light and energy to direct, to heal, and also to kind of avoid
Mm-hmm.
negative things as well. So it's something that we don't. Well, I think as far as a collective, everybody's waking up to the fact that this is something we all have, and it's a gift. Um, and we just know how to learn how to direct it in order to take care of ourselves, our loved ones, and you go way deeper.
Yes, I'm stubborn like that. There is no now what. I like to have all the answers. I like to release whatever I can find because the more we can release, the more we become our authentic self.
Right, right. We're cleaning house.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's exactly what we're doing.
we're
Cleaning
cleaning
house.
we're cleaning house. So, oh, I just had a question about that. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to ask. As far as these cycles go, like your trauma cycles and all of that, um, do you have any advice as to how to recognize it and maybe put a stop when you see that happening again and again?
Well, do you mean trauma cycles in a reoccurring trauma
Mhm.
or us having
Yeah.
the same triggers?
Oh, well, I guess they kind of go hand in hand, right?
Well, I think triggers is easier than recurring trauma. First,
Yeah.
I think when we have recurring trauma, we have to realize that it's recurring. We have to realize that it's the same thing in a different situation. And then it depends where we are in our healing journey. If we're still too much into the trigger, still the trauma victim, where we think that whatever happens is because we're cursed, because it's our fault, because we did something that made this happen. When we're still there, it's kind of difficult to do that. But once we have a little distance to it and can look at the trauma from the survivor stage, to see it and say, okay, it wasn't our fault. And we can get past the anger that we are going to feel, which is very natural. We're allowed to be angry, but we also have to move past the anger because too many people get stuck in the anger. And
Yeah.
with that, they keep themselves stuck in the trauma. They don't allow themselves to let it go
Right.
because they cannot get justice. So they
Right.
basically punish themselves by staying in the story and not heal. But there was no question. Once we see the pattern, then we can start exploring, okay, why? What is the greater issue here? Then we can start looking at our parents. Did they go through something similar?
Mm-hmm.
Then we can start asking questions like, what happened to this and this in our family? If something is hush hush, you definitely want to know what went on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no hush hush anymore because that is where we learn what's really going on in our ancestral line. So seeing the pattern is one thing, and then having the courage to explore it is quite another because you have to look within yourself. And when you're just starting your healing journey, looking at yourself within yourself, looking at the pain and trying to make sense of it can be very scary,
Yeah.
but
You
it's so worth it.
you avoid it at all costs.
Exactly. The avoidance is never good. That never works. At some point, it's going to bite you.
Right. Right. So you are so good at your work. I'm just going to say this again. She assists you in such a calm manner as you're going through your trash bin of life. She's just so good at just oh, we'll just get rid of that. We'll just do this and we'll just do that. And just know that when you work with Sandra, um, she's the most calm healer as she is dealing with some severe trauma, that you don't have to feel scared or like your safety is going to be intruded, or your privacy, or judgmental. That's the key word. She's not like that at all. She has gone through it herself, and she will, she can share that with you, or very quickly pick out a couple of things, so to qualify and validate that anything that you've gone through is probably not, not that bad. But um, the one thing, it just seems to me like every generation, every race, creed, color, whatever it is, they have had their trauma and they have passed it on. And I'm sure you recognize this, like the Native American Indian, with the Trail of Tears, and how they're doing, um, how they're living and how they're resolving those kinds of things that are still, they're dealing with that today, and the extinction of other races, and also the social and the political traumas that are, the stigmata of, the gendering and all of this. It is just, it needs to be put into perspective, and yeah, it needs, where it's severe needs to be healed, and where it's getting in the way needs to be dissolved. And you're so good at that. Hey, I want to say hi to everybody in the chat room, and I'm so glad you're here to meet my spiritual friend Sandra. I see Vonda's here, Sheila's here, and she says Debbie and Jules and I are listening in. Well, I'm so happy. And Mary Chris, you're there too. I know Sheena's listening, and Carla's listening, and Mr. Bill, of course, is listening. And I'm sure that you have your friends too, Sandra, that are coming along. And I want to say thank you to everyone. And if you're not here live, I know that you will be listening to the replay or the archive. And I just want to say how absolutely fabulous Sandra Cooze is. And what's the best way they can reach you?
Well, the easiest way is probably through my website, riseaboveyourstory.com. You can simply book a free consultation, and we have time to chat and see if we feel comfortable working with each other, what I could do for you, what you're looking for. And you can find me, of course, on Facebook under Rise Above Your Story. LinkedIn, yeah, every once in a while I pop in. I think Facebook is the better way to reach me. I have a YouTube channel, small yet, but getting there. It's called Sandra Cooze Unfiltered, where I basically talk about any subject that just pops into my mind. So it's very eclectic. And yeah, I guess these are the best ways to find me.
So I just drew a card to wrap us up. I love this one. I am worth loving.
Value.
Value. I do not have to earn love. I am lovable because I exist. Others reflect the love I have for myself. That
That's
was
so
Louise.
very true. I
That
love that.
is the perfect wrap up.
Yes, it is. Couldn't have picked a better card.
The perfect wrap up. Well, everyone, I'm going to have a special show because we've got the summer solstice and sun entering into Cancer on June 21st. I want to talk a little bit about that new moon in Gemini and how that's going to affect us. But the big thing is that Saturn's going retrograde. Now, Saturn rules those midlife crises, and Saturn is the one that is really something that needs to be looked at through the cycle of your life, because there's a cycle to Saturn. Saturn is what helps you build your foundation, but also is the disciplinarian and gives you the tools to manifest your goals in your life. So we're going to take a look at that. That's going to be a special show. So I will go ahead and throw the social media banners out when that's happening, and I hope you all attend. Sandra, again, thank you so much. And you can always get a reading with me on kimlalow.com. You can always, there's a little scanner right here. Yeah, you can always click on that, take a picture of that. If you have learned anything tonight, if you have ever watched the show and we've given you a reading and that helped you along the way, I do have a special donate button that goes to the charities that I like to share with. And I hope you do too. All righty, Sandra, thanks again. Until next time, may the angels protect you and guide you. Good night, everyone.
Hi.